So here she is, Laura Ann Williams is in the house.
Hello!
Thanks for joining us, Laura.
Dance.
Excited
My
dance.
pleasure.
Yeah, so people that are listening on the podcast won't see your excited dance, but I'm not even going to describe it. They'll just have to imagine it.
Probably for the best, yeah.
Probably looks a bit like jazz hands, if you can imagine. So, Laura, thank you very much for joining me today. This is the, I think we're up to the 5th episode in domestic violence or domestic abuse in lockdown series, or lockdown and beyond, because yesterday it was announced that there was more easing, but it's still so relevant that I'm not going to give up anytime soon. And Laura is a marketing expert, and basically we were talking about terminology. I met her on a call. Well, I've met her before, but I met her specifically on a call where she was talking about terminology and making sure that we use the right phrases for things. And we got talking, and she began to tell me a little bit about her history with domestic abuse. So I have brought her on because I think what she has to say is very powerful and very pertinent, and hopefully very helpful for anybody that is really experiencing some of the things that she experienced. Because Laura, you know, when we talked about what we wanted to concentrate on, from your perspective, it was really the fact that you really did not know what was going on. You didn't have a name for it. There was no point of reference. So that's what we're going to concentrate on this call today. But first of all, just to be clear, this happened quite a while ago. Just explain to us how old you were when this started.
Yeah. So I met my ex-partner when I was 18. I left him just before I turned 24, and I'm 33 now. And I didn't start dealing with any of the fallout of the relationship until I was at least 27, when I had a nervous breakdown and moved back in with my parents.
Well, thank goodness for your parents, that's all I can say.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was clinging to them for dear life, and it was I think the most difficult thing about it was that they were grieving the life that they wanted me to have at the same time that I was as well. But it must have been very, very difficult for them, because I was a different person when I went home. I had PTSD. I was in full-on survival mode. I'm pretty sure I was very unpleasant to be around. Just hypervigilant, hypersensitive to everything, because in my brain everything was trying to kill me. And I think that must have been incredibly, incredibly hard for my parents. Because when I went to university, I was all enthusiastic, I was bubbly, everything was going to be great, my life was mine to command. And then I came home 10 years later and I was just broken.
And they had no idea. They had no idea that any of this was going on.
No,
so did you cover up all of this? I mean, I presume you spoke to them in that 10 years.
Yeah,
but
I
you
did.
were just you were just covering everything up, were you?
I think just because it was so insidious, it just became normal. So there was nothing to write home about, as it were. So, I wouldn't sort of phone my mum and say, oh, by the way, I've noticed my ex hasn't addressed me by my name for 6 years. It's not something
didn't occur to you. So let's start at the beginning then. So how did this build up? I mean, presumably 18, like everybody that has an abusive partner, whatever it is, you don't start off knowing, obviously. You start off in love with this person, and that's often why you stay with them, is because you remember the person you fell in love with. But looking back now, and I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but looking back now, what were the things that happened to you that you think, why did I not clock what was going on?
I think the first thing was that this guy pursued me for about 6 months before we even began a relationship. And I remember we'd been together for about 2 weeks, and I was just using the loo at work, and I just had this thought of, I should get out of this is terrible, this is a really bad idea. And I just ignored it.
So it was a red flag. Something was a red flag already, and you ignored it.
Yeah, and I ignored it because I had been wanting to be in a relationship for a long time. I had not really had a proper boyfriend throughout school. I'd always been told that I was scary, I was too opinionated, I was too loud, I spoke too much, you know, all of these things that we try very, very hard now not to tell little girls. And yeah, so I was just kind of like, oh, this is my chance. Is it my only chance? And it was just, you know, he must really, really want to be with me. He's been chasing me for 6 months. You know, and he's been turning up and consistently, and it's just,
would we call that stalking now?
I don't know if I would sort of call it that, because, you know, we lived in the same block of flats at university, we lived on the same floor, we knew some of the same people, and, you know, we just started hanging out because I met him because he applied to rent one of the rooms in the house I was going into in the second year. So it was just a kind of, well, we're going to be living together, so, you know, might as well get to know each other. And then, you know, our other future housemates were like, oh, well, he really fancies you, you know, he really likes you. And for me, that was kind of, but it's not reciprocated. I don't feel that way about this person. And then I remember I had one evening where I kind of sort of fell asleep in his room on his bed. And I know he turned all the lights off and everything and came and lay down next to me. And then I instantly went, right, I've got to go back to my own room, thank you. Because I was just like, I can't sleep next to you. I feel so uncomfortable. But I was so in need of the validation that I was not too much for someone to be with, that I think I ignored it. I just kind of went, right, this person adores me. I'm quite fond of him. I could adore him, I suppose. And I just went along with it. And then, you know, because we were living together so quickly, so, I mean, you know, we knew each other for about 6 months before we moved in together, but we moved in together within 2 weeks of actually getting together.
Sorry. Wait. Fortunately, I can edit this. The telephone never rings in my house unless I'm recording.
Of course, those are the rules.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's picked it up or if they're just... Don't know. Right, sorry.
Right.
So let's go back. I need to take you back. So so you can go back to, it all happened really quickly. We were living together within 2 weeks.
Yeah. So it all happened really, really quickly, and because we were going to be moving in together, because we were sharing accommodation anyway, it happened literally 2 weeks after we, you know, got together. After we first kissed, we'd moved in together, which was very, very, very fast. And I know that I was his first proper relationship, you know, much the same way as he was mine. And I think one of the biggest red flags that came up was how insecure he was that I had slept with other people before him. So, you know, I hadn't had a serious boyfriend, I hadn't been in a full-on relationship, but I had had sex. And I'd had it with a few different people, whereas I was his first. And it was kind of, I mean, he just didn't ever want to hear that I had slept with somebody else, ever. So, I mean, you know what it's like at university, everybody's having a good time, we're all drinking, we're having fun, these things come up because, you know, why not? And it would be that if I ever started talking about any of my sexual experiences before him, he'd get up and leave the room. And then sort of a couple of hours later, when we were going to bed, it would be like, well, you have to have sex with me right now. It's like, why do I have to do this? And it was, I think for him, it was a kind of validation of, well, you've chosen to be with me, so let's do this now, just to you know, make me feel better. And that was a kind of, okay, but what's in it for me kind of thing.
Yeah, but you weren't really thinking about that at 18, were you? Not really. I mean, you're not very old at 18. You know, we've all done things at 18 where you think, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You,
and
you could not pay me to redo my 20s, and there is not enough money in the world to make me be a teenager again.
yeah,
I hated it. I
yeah,
absolutely hated it.
yeah. So when you were, actually, it sounds like you were both actually very vulnerable, but you behaved in very different ways. And his was one of power and presumably this kind of jealousy streak.
Mhm.
How else did that manifest itself, and what other things did he do?
Um, I mean, I think it was, one of the other things that seemed to really, really bother him was that I couldn't have an orgasm just because it wasn't good enough. Which, when you're 18, that's fine. I defy any 18-year-old girl to say, yeah, I'm having orgasms all the time. It doesn't happen because you don't know how. You haven't learned it yet. But for him, that was like a personal affront. It was like me going, well,
Well, he'd
you're
read
rubbish.
somewhere, presumably, that was what was supposed to happen.
Yeah, I'd guess. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, we don't have foreplay for long enough. I've told you the kind of things that I want you to do, and you do it once and then you just forget about it.
Yeah.
And I got bored, basically. I just kind of went, oh, do you know what? I can't be bothered. I keep telling you what I need and you're not listening to me. It's still only ever about you. And it kind of got to the stage when, I started trying to introduce toys and things. I was like, well, I know I can have orgasms. I do it by myself all the time. And again, he used to leave the room. So it would be, we had sex, he had his orgasm, I'd get my toy out and be like, okay, well, let's keep going because I'm not done yet. And yeah, he'd get up and leave the room and just kind of leave me to finish off by myself because it was a visual affront to him that he couldn't get me there. And he wasn't interested in learning how to get me there. It was just a boom, you should be able to do this. You're doing this on purpose. You're avoiding orgasms to spite me.
Yes. So did this kind of carry out, this was the nature of your sexual relationship throughout the whole time.
Yeah.
So what other things were off? What other things were just not right?
He didn't like me to wear lipstick.
Right.
He used to say that it was like I was deliberately trying to make it so he couldn't kiss me.
I've never seen you without lipstick on.
I fucking love it. I love lipstick.
I don't ever go out of the house without my lipstick on. Well, even in the house.
It's part of my defiance. I will wear the brightest lipsticks that I can find because I'm going, yeah, fuck off, mate.
Yeah, you're right.
My lips, I'll put on them what I want. Thank you. But yeah, so it was a kind of, well, if
and what you wore
as
well. Did you have things about what you should wear and what you shouldn't wear? What was appropriate?
Yeah. So I was not supposed to wear bright colours, which again, I barely own anything black now, but then all of my clothes were black. He used to encourage me to eat a lot, and then kind of, if I was going, I feel like I've put on quite a lot of weight, then it was just like, well, you have been eating a lot. It's like, but you keep handing me biscuits. You keep physically putting food in front of me.
Yes.
And then expecting me not to eat it.
So what was that about, do you think?
I don't know, really. He was very, very skinny. He had a ridiculously high metabolism and he could not put on weight. But I could. So it was almost, I don't know if that was a connection in there. And I think.
Did he think that if you were overweight that other men wouldn't be looking at you?
Yep.
So this was another form of control.
Yeah.
But you didn't see it as control at the time. What did you see it as at the time? Do you remember?
I don't think I really saw it as anything. I think I just kind of went, okay, well, I've got a ball and you stop trying, so well, that must be it.
Wait a minute, we lost each other then. Hang on.
Hang
on, Laura. The sound went and you've frozen. Just a minute. I don't know if it's you or me, but the sound went then, so we're going to have to go back. Just speak to me.
Yep, hello, I'm here.
Yeah, it's not a great thing. We'll just go back to So I'm going to ask you, do you think this was about you not being attracted to other men? Can we go from there?
Yeah.
So do you think this was something to do with you being less attractive to other men?
Yes, absolutely. And I think as well, when we first got together, Veronica Mars, it's a TV series with Kristen Bell, that was fairly new, and he was properly into that show, and I really liked it as well. And he was just kind of like, oh yeah, you really act like Veronica, you know, you've got the same mannerisms, the same kind of hair, the same style. And then it was kind of like I had to be that TV character. And when I started drifting away from it, then there was an element of punishment.
Okay, so let's talk about the punishments then.
So, I mean, he never hit me. If he'd hit me, I would have known it was wrong, and I would have gone straight out the door.
I've heard that before. I think that's very common, isn't it? I've interviewed somebody recently who said the same thing. It would have been better if he'd have hit me.
Yeah.
Because of some of the other things that was going on. Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, for years afterwards, I was like, God, I wish he'd broken my face instead of my brain.
Yeah.
Because then everybody could see it.
Yes. So these punishments were more subtle than that. So what did they look like?
So it would be, you know, I would spend 3 days making our flat look clean, tidy, beautiful, exactly how I wanted it to be. And then he'd get home from work and it would all be undone within half an hour. It was things like, I just used to ask him to keep his keys in his wallet near the front door, but he'd always leave them on the coffee table. He'd just pile stuff up on the coffee table that he knew I wanted to be clear. And it was kind of, I got him a hook for his keys by the door. I got a bowl and a little table by the door for him to put his stuff on. And it was just always on the coffee table because that was space that I wanted.
So this was about him asserting his way and undermining you.
Yeah, and it could basically have just peed all the way around our flat. It would have been faster.
Yeah. And it might sound to people listening, well, it doesn't sound like much, but actually these are all these red flags that were going on when you were in your 18 up to, you know, that actually built up that presumably created a lack of self-esteem, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So you didn't really know who you were, or am I putting words in your mouth here?
He made me feel like I was stupid.
Right.
All the time. It was that had always been a big trigger for me. I'm an end of July baby, so I was almost a year behind developmentally with other people in my year at school, and then I got to university, and again I was almost a year behind everybody in age, and he just made me feel stupid all the time. I could never get anything right. So it was a constant, I might say something like, well, yeah, but, and then it was always interjecting his opinion over mine to the point when I just stopped expressing opinions.
And how did your university work go through all of this? Do you think it suffered? Did you manage to kind of maintain that side of your life?
Yeah, I managed to maintain the academic side of it. I think because we were living with other people as well, it was only really sort of once we moved in to our first flat together and there was nobody else there for any of this to get diluted by, that he really ramped it up. And he'd always been messy, and it was since I would do all of the cooking. The one time that he did go to cook for us, he actually set the oven on fire, and we had to shell out 700 quid for a new oven. But and again, when it got to that point, because the contents insurance was in his name, he had to send off the reports and everything. It got to the stage when I was being chased by our landlord saying, have you got this insurance check yet? Have you got this insurance check yet? Because we'd had the new oven for almost 3 months. And I was kind of there going, I can't do anything. The insurance isn't in my name. It has to be him who does it. And he keeps saying, yeah, tomorrow. Well, yeah, I'll do it later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that.
Did you have a row with him, Laura? Did you ever argue with him? Did you ever try and assert yourself? Or was it just so subtle? Or what was going on?
We had 2 arguments.
In all that time?
In all that time, 2 proper fights. And I started both of them. And when, shortly after we'd moved in together, he got made redundant. He refused to sign on. It was beneath his dignity. And I kept saying to him, well, if you sign on, I can pay for everything else. I can pay for our rent, I can cover our bills, but I can't buy us food as well. And at this point, I was earning £825 a month, which is nothing. It's peanuts. And he wouldn't do it. And it was this kind of, well, no, you do it, you fix everything, you go and get a second job. He was perfectly happy for me to talk about having to get a second, like an evening job on top of my full-time, poorly paid job. And at the same time, I was supposed to take care of him and cater to his every whim. He didn't have to get dressed during the day. He didn't clean up anything while I was at work. And I just remember one evening, went and had a bath, and he came and got in with me, and was then sort of indicating he wanted to have sex, and I just said, oh, I don't feel like it because I'm knackered.
Just wait a minute, we need to go back. We lost you then, just a second. So just go from, and one evening I remember I went and had a bath.
Yeah. And one evening I went and ran myself a bath. He came into the bathroom, he joined me in the bath. He started trying to initiate sex, and I said, no, I'm knackered, I'm just really, really tired. And he said, I can't remember the last time you tried to be sexy. And that was like being punched in the gut, because I was kind of there going, do I have to try? Do you not love me just as I am?
Did he ever tell you? Did he ever tell you that he loved you?
Yes. Yeah, he used to say it a fair amount, I think, but usually only as a response to me saying it. Right. It was always like an I love you too.
Okay. But the one thing is that he didn't actually use your name, did he?
No.
He never called you Laura or Laura Ann. He never called you Laura.
No, I had no name for 6 years. The only time he ever used my name is if he was introducing me to somebody else. And I did ask him about it once, I think sort of about 3 years into our relationship. And I kind of said, I've noticed you never use my name. And he said, I haven't found one that fits you yet.
What an extraordinary thing to say.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, I don't know, perhaps the one I've been given, the one I use, the one I've told you that I
But all of this strong Laura was going on in your head. It wasn't coming out of your mouth, was it?
No. And I mean, we had, in our first argument, it was sort of the day after he'd said to me, I can't remember the last time you tried to be sexy. And I'd been at work all day, and just the rage built up. And I got home, and I remember him going, oh, are you all right? She said, no, I'm not. And this is why. And I just basically went through all of it. And I was like, and I'm going to cry because I'm very angry. And I cry when I'm angry. It's not because I'm feeling weak or vulnerable. It's because I'm fucking furious. And it just happens to come out of my eyeballs. And at this point, he was down on his knees in our kitchen going, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never meant to make you feel that way. And a proper begging.
But this was must have been about 4 years into 3 or 4 years into the relationship.
About 3 years in, yeah, about 3 years in.
And that was the first time that he'd apologised to you, or that you almost stood up to him. It took you 3 years to do that. Wow.
Yep. And I remember that very early in our relationship, we were just kind of play fighting, and he called me a bitch, and I just said, don't call me that. He said, you never get to call me that. And so I think for him, it was almost like he knew that any overt aggression, I would know that was wrong, and I would push back.
So that's why, you said to me, you had no point of reference to this. You didn't know what was going on. I think nowadays we'd call it coercive control or gaslighting or whatever. But you had no idea. You knew that you didn't like stuff, but you really had no idea that now we would just pure and simply call this abuse.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, I had no frame of reference for it. You know, the only thing that yes, I knew the statistic about rape, and that 90% of women know their attackers, but I'd never seen it represented
within a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the same as, oh, you know, it's a guy that I've met a few times. That's not what's
or
here.
It was always kind of like, oh yeah, well, I was walking home at night by myself and I got dragged down an alley at knife point and blah blah blah. You know, that's all anyone was talking about in the magazines, in the soap operas, and all of these things. And I didn't actually know that husbands could sexually assault their wives until it came up on an episode of EastEnders.
Wow.
And it, you know, I kind of saw it, and it was with little Mo and her first husband, and that was a very physically abusive relationship. And I remember looking at it going, I've never seen this before, ever. And then I remember being furious with the writers. It must have been a few months or a couple of years later when they had her being raped by another person. And I just kind of went, have you not done enough? If you're not done enough to this poor woman, does she not get to have some peace? And no, now she's pregnant by her rapist, and her new marriage is going to fall apart. And you know, I never saw the bit in between the, oh, I've been abused, I'm having a mental breakdown, and okay, I'm better now. No one ever showed the in-between bit. So I had nothing that I could pinpoint and recognize and go, oh yeah, no, I'm doing that. That's probably not right. And I mean, by the time I had my breakdown, I was so ill. I remember sort of coming to myself, and I had tried to wedge myself in one of my kitchen cupboards. I had no idea how I got there, no idea why I was there or how long I'd been there.
But this was a few years after the relationship had finished.
Yeah.
As well. So this, because you'd not addressed it, because you hadn't recognised it, you hadn't addressed it, all of these, as you could say, PTSD symptoms came out then. How did you get out of the relationship? What was the final straw?
I think for me the final straw was realising that we were never going to get to have children. Because I really wanted children. I wanted to be married before I had children, and he would never marry me.
So even though he was doing this to you, you were still in the mindset that this was the only guy that you were ever going to get, and therefore you needed to stay with him, and because you wanted to be married and have children.
Yep.
Isn't that extraordinary?
I'd set myself these ridiculous deadlines, like, you know, oh, I want to be married with a kid by the time I'm 25. Now I'm like, I don't want to be married with a kid by the time I'm 35.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want. But, you know, then it was just really, really prescribed. It was kind of like, okay, so yeah, I should be married with a kid by the age of 25. And it's just, I mean, I actually asked him to marry me. Yeah, at one point.
Despite what was going on.
Despite what was going on. And this is what led to our second fight ever. Because he said, no. She said, you know, no, I want to be the one who asks. You know, it has to be me who asks. And again, it was like a power thing. It was just, you know, no, I'm not going to agree to marry you until I say so. And yeah, that bit, we were at a party at a friend's house, and I just kind of went, okay, I'm going to leave. Don't follow me. Just don't follow me. And yeah, it was just kind of like just black sea of red. I know, it was just like, nah. And it was, God, I think it was still like another 6 months or a year after that it finally sunk in, and I went, I am never going to get to have the life that I want with this person. And it was kind of, as soon as I'd made that connection, I was done. And I just went, no, do you know what? No, I'm done. And
I think, isn't it very common with women, you know, and women that are in much more abusive relationships than you, so whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse, you know, these incidents, it takes months and sometimes years before that point arises, and every woman gets, hopefully, that gets to that point, and hopefully all women do, but not all women do. There is just something that tips them over the edge, and it might not be what you and I, or what I would assume. You know, it might not be something you would say, well, that would be my final straw. You know, it's different for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'd kind of, because I'd changed jobs, so I'd moved from being a waitress for Lock Fine to being a manager, assistant manager for Bath Ale. So it was a bit of a pay cut for me because I wasn't getting the tips anymore. And I had spoken to my ex about it and said, you know, okay, well, can we do this, because I will be earning less money. And he'd said, yes, I will support you, whatever you need. And then I was still paying for half of everything. So I was earning perhaps 15 grand a year, and he was on almost 30.
But you were paying half. But
I was paying for half of everything. So he was clearing all of his debts. I couldn't get rid of any of mine because I didn't have enough. And yeah,
can we just go back to, you know, your mum and dad, and you know, what was going on from people outside? Were you being isolated at this point, or were you just a really good actress? What was going on?
I was completely isolated. I don't think I'd been back to my parents' house for a year. And you know, for me, it was almost like it's just, you know, it's stressful. Go home, get treated like a child. You know, actually, it's not what I want, kind of thing. And he encouraged that as well, because he never went home.
No.
So it was a kind of, no, you can't go home. You have to stay here and look after me, because your parents don't need you anyway. I need you, kind of thing. And it wasn't until my mum had said to me, "You've not been home for a year," that I kind of went, oh, okay, all right, well, I'll go home this weekend then. And I got home and I just slept for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was kind of, and then I was talking to my mum about it and going, you know, okay, things are difficult, this is happening. And I'm just like, I'm tired, I feel 100 years old. So, you know, I'm 23, I feel like I'm 123. So, you know, I feel like my life has gone. I feel old. And I'm not supposed to right now. I'm
really hard for your parents, for your mum to know, because you know, as a mum, it doesn't matter whether your child's 13 or 23 or 43, because, you know, I have children that are in their 20s and 30s. You don't want that for your children, as you described earlier. You know, she was mourning for the life that she thought that you wanted or deserved, and that she wanted for you. And for her to have, I can get to her, that she's thinking, oh my gosh, you've been through this for 7 years and I didn't know about it. And how, you know, not only devastated she is for you, but also I'd imagine how guilty she felt that she hadn't picked it up. That
she put so much guilt on herself.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first sort of explained to her that my ex-partner had been raping me on a pretty regular basis for years, and she just kind of went, I should have taught you to say no. I should have taught you how to say no. I just kind of said, you know, at the time I was like, no, because that puts the blame on me and that makes it my fault. That means I should have said no instead of, oh yeah, you just shouldn't have done this to me. And so, you know, I was kind of instantly like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I didn't
because
do it.
She was saying what she thought would have been the best thing to say, but of course she didn't know the rules either, did she?
No, she didn't have the language to communicate it. I didn't have the language to communicate it. I mean, I know that she just kind of said to me, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry this was done to you, and I'm sorry I didn't know about it.
Yes, yeah. But a lot of that was,
I think for me as well, I had that kind of, you should have known about it. You're my mother. You should have known something was wrong. You're supposed to save me. You're always supposed to save me. And so I think we had a massive breakdown in our relationship for about a year, and it went from, I can tell my mum everything, my mum's actually my best friend, to I can't tell her anything because just her answers will hurt me. And she wasn't aware of how ill I was, and she has said this to me recently as well. You know, she just kind of said it wasn't until we took you to a psychiatrist and they said this is really, really wrong, she's really, really ill.
Yeah.
And you know, my mum kind of said, you know, it wasn't until that point that she really understood it. And I remember I'd been home for about 3 weeks, and I said that I was just feeling stressed, and yeah, my mum was like, well, you shouldn't be feeling stressed anymore, you're home now, you know, you're safe now. But I was kind of there going, oh right, okay, so I'm supposed to be better now because I've moved back in with mummy and daddy. I see. Well, I'm not better. I don't know why. It must be your fault, because it can't be my fault, because everything else is happening to me. I can't take the blame for this as well.
Yes.
And yeah, and I'd seen my mum be so supportive to other people as well, because she had with her catering company, she had a huge following in the heavy metal community, and so many metalheads are damaged, or they've been abused, or something has happened to them. And to see my mum be so good with them, but not ostensibly with you. Yeah, and not with me. I felt so betrayed, and I was just kind of like, you know, I can't come to you to be rescued now, because you don't know how to do it. You can't do it, so I'm gonna have to work out how to save myself. And you know, the first thing that I did to save myself was I ran to save my life. You know, I got out of that relationship, even though I wasn't sure exactly what was wrong. I knew that something was. Yeah. So I got out of it, and I kind of went, you know what? I've survived that. It didn't kill me. Yeah. So, okay, I'm sure I can cope with other things. And it took me so long to contact Rape Crisis as well. I tried calling them so many times, and I'd just have to hang up because I was going to be sick. And it was just like, you know, okay, so if I go to someone and tell them this, and they tell me it's real, then I have to actually deal with it. I have to face that. Yeah. So I can't just go, oh. So I didn't just sort of exaggerate everything in my head, and it's not. Oh crap, that's real. Oh no, this has actually happened. And so yeah, it took me a while. So did you have a combination of therapies? Did you have any drug therapy as well as, you know, some talking therapies or whatever? My GP put me on citalopram initially. I mean, I tried to stay off antidepressants initially because my brother is clinically depressed, and he had bad reactions to every kind of antidepressant they put him on. Yeah. And I just kind of said to my GP, I can't deal with that as well as everything else. You know, my brain is broken. I can't have all of the physical allergies to this medication too. And it was, I woke up and I was hallucinating that my ex was standing over me, stood there, you know, just casually with a beer. And, you know, I was in my bedroom and I was trying to scream, and there was literally no sound coming out of my mouth. Very scary, Laura. Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. And I went to my GP the next day and I just said, I've gone mad. I'm seeing my ex-boyfriend standing over me in the middle of the night, and I can't sleep, and I don't know what to do. And he just kind of went, okay, the first thing we need to do, we need to get you to sleep, because I can't put you on any other medication before you've kind of leveled that back out. Yeah. Said, okay, cool, let's do that. Give me some drugs. And he gave me Zopiclone. And it was a 7.5 milligram dose of Zopiclone. And I was zombie. I managed to, yes, I slept. I also drove to work, did a 6-hour shift, drove home, had a 3-hour break, drove back to work, worked another 6 hours, and drove home again. I don't remember any of it. Zonked out of your head. Yeah, I genuinely have no idea what happened that day. I know I turned up to work and I didn't get sacked. Isn't it interesting that if you'd have broken your leg, there'd have been this visible sign. There's no way that anybody would have expected you to go to work. Yep. But because you were broken in your head, you and everybody else thought, well, actually, I'm on medication.
so I've got my crutch, so it's okay for me to go and just carry on. And you know, that's the rub of mental health, isn't it? And it's still happening, you know, that's
and it's
that's
just
kind of what's expected.
It does manifest itself in a physical way as well. And
yes,
for me it was, I mean, I was driving to work one day and there was a horrible noise in the car, and I thought it was the radio, so I was kind of fiddling with the tuning and trying to get this noise to stop, and then I realized it was me and I was screaming.
wow.
And I had no concept that that noise was coming from me. I thought there must have been something wrong with the car. I thought maybe one of the wheels had fallen off or something, and I had to pull over, and it took me 20 minutes to stop screaming. I had to text my boss and say, I'm just running a little bit late, I will be there.
So still covering it all up, still going, Laura's fine.
I was like, you know, I'm just running a little bit late, it's fine, it's fine.
I'm having a psychotic episode, don't mind me.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I went to work.
Wow.
And you know, again,
so how long did it take you to kind of recover? You know, it was presumably a slow recovery. Would you say now that you still have some residual effects of this?
It's something that is always going to be with me. And that, I think, when you first start doing the work to get better, that's one of the most difficult things for you to accept, because really what you want is for someone to make it go away. And nobody can do that. It's something that's happened, it's there, it's always going to be there. You learn how to cope with it. And you know, I know what my triggers are. I am in a stable relationship now. But I stayed single for 5 years because I just kind of went, no thank you, no, leave me alone, I don't want anything to do with this. But you know, now I'm kind of able to, if there's anything that my current partner does that kind of makes me go, oh, I'm actually able to explain to him and say, okay, it's nothing to do with you.
It's not you, it's just a trigger.
So we're just kind of tapping into a part of my brain that is still going, oh, danger. But I no longer have PTSD. And I do still take medication. I have had so much therapy. I had about 3 months of counselling through rape crisis, and then I was okay for a few months, and then I was finally ready to have sex again with someone, and I was like, this will be great. And then I had vaginismus.
Oh right.
Which was awesome. So, and again, I just kind of, I was so determined that it was going to be normal and I was going to be okay, that, you know, even though I literally passed out, I slid face first down my bathroom door while this friend and I were messing around, and you know, I kind of came to, and he was like, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I think I might be a little bit drunk or something. It's like, no, are you okay? You're bleeding everywhere. I was like, oh, I'm sat in a puddle of my own blood, I see, okay. And I kind of went, it's fine, should we go back to the hotel? And you know, we went, I had sex with him for about 5 hours. It felt like I was being torn in half. It was so fucking painful. But I was just like, no, I will do this. I will be normal. I will get to have sex again, because he's broken my brain. He doesn't get to break my vagina as well. It's just not fair. It was kind of like, you know, this was part of my identity, my sexuality. It was so important to me. And I was like, you can't have that as well. You can't take everything. And then I had
it's been a roller coaster. It's not been straightforward. It's been a roller coaster, and you would say that, you know. So I mean, incredible story, and thank you for being so open and honest and you know, frank about what this was like for you. And because I know there'll be a lot of people, women particularly, who might be in these really subtle situations like you, who are really unaware like you were. And this, if we can help them to spot the signs of this kind of subtle control that eventually obviously turned into, you know, sexual abuse for you. But you know, these things do tend to get worse, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of subtle stuff, you can't wear any lipstick, they're not always going to turn up into marital rape. But, you know, there are, these are red flags. And I bet you wish now, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Maybe when I was sitting on the toilet after 2 weeks in, I wish I'd got out.
Yeah, I was just like, oh God, I wish I'd listened to myself.
Listen to my gut, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think.
So thank you so much. Now, there may be some people that might want to connect with you, and, you know, I'm sure that you would be happy to talk to anybody. So where's the best place for people to get a hold of you?
So they can get in touch with me on my Facebook page, which is Oh My Ovaries, and they can get in touch with me via my website, which is ohmyovaries.net, and also my Instagram channel, which is at ohmyovaries_UK.
Okay, so I'm going to put the links all in here. I'm going to put them in the show notes, so that if people do want to talk to you, that's very generous of you, you know, to be so supportive. Thank you, Laura, for today. Thank you for being the wonderful you that you are. And if anybody is relating to this, if you know somebody that you're thinking, oh gosh, you know, that's happening to my friend, I've seen this kind of behaviour, please share this. And also the campaign poster, and please join our Facebook page, #SpotTheSigns. There is also a private group if somebody wants to join that. But really it's about getting this message out there. And if you could look on YouTube, follow us on YouTube, because the other episodes of this campaign are also on YouTube as well, under Dr. Jill Barham. So thank you for anything that anybody can do to really get this message out, especially in these troubled times. Thanks very much, Laura.
Pleasure.